I'm 53 years old, and for most of my life, I thought love had its time and place, that once the kids were grown and the house got quieter, that part of me, the part that needed to be seen and truly known, would just fade away. I raised a daughter, built a home, and I thought I'd found my peace in routines, in silence, in knowing my role. That life has a funny way of waking you up when you least expect it. I never thought something like this could happen to me. Please don't make the same mistake I did. It was a Thursday late afternoon. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and dryer sheets. I had just finished folding towels and was sitting on the edge of my bed, rubbing lotion into my hands the way I always did after chores. There was music playing low on my bedroom speaker, something soft and piano heavy, the kind of thing that fills a room without asking too much of it. That day had started like any other. My daughter Melanie had dropped by earlier to pick up a package and chat for a few minutes. She'd mentioned that Ryan, her husband, was going to swing by later to help move the old dresser I'd finally decided to get rid of. My back had been acting up, and he'd insisted. I didn't expect him so soon. The knock was gentle but quick. I barely had time to answer before the door creaked open. And there he was, Ryan, standing in the doorway, holding a toolkit and looking far too serious for someone just moving furniture. "Hey, sorry," he said, eyes scanning the room quickly before landing on me. "Mel said you needed help with the dresser." His voice was steady, polite, but his face, something in it was off. Not in a bad way, but like he was wrestling with something. I noticed the way his jaw clenched for a second too long, and the way his eyes lingered, not in a disrespectful way, just thoughtful. I stood up, brushing imaginary lint from my blouse. "Yes, it's the one in the guest room. I thought we could start there." He nodded, stepping into the room a little further. And then, before I could guide him out, he stopped just inside the doorway. The silence stretched in that awkward, noticeable way, the kind of pause you only notice when there's something unspoken hanging between two people. "Are you okay?" I asked, trying to fill the space with something. "Anything." He looked at me like he wasn't sure if he should speak. Then finally, he let out a breath and said, "Can I ask you something kind of personal?" I blinked. "Sure." He stepped forward again, slow, careful. His voice softened. "Do you ever feel like you've spent your whole life giving and forgot what it feels like to be seen?" The question hit me like a gust of wind, not harsh, but powerful in its truth. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for a second I didn't see my son-in-law. I saw someone who was just as lost as I'd once felt. Someone searching for something gentle, something real. I swallowed. My voice came out quieter than I expected. "Yes, I do." And there it was again. That silence, not uncomfortable now, but full, loaded. He walked over to the dresser and placed the toolkit on top of it. But he didn't turn to the drawers. He turned to me. "I don't know how to say this right," he began, rubbing the back of his neck. "But there's something about you, the way you carry yourself, the way you look at people like you really see them. I've noticed it for a while, and it's made me think about a lot of things." My heart was beating in places I hadn't felt in years. I sat back down slowly, needing to be grounded. "Ryan," I said, my voice catching slightly, "you're married to my daughter." He nodded quickly. "I know. I'm not trying to cross any lines. I don't know who else I could say this to. You're the only person who ever made me feel like I wasn't performing all the time, like I could just be." And suddenly, the room wasn't just four walls and a bed and a half-dismantled dresser. It was a space holding two people who didn't quite know what to do with their truths. I didn't reach for him. He didn't move any closer, but there was something deeply intimate in the way we sat, 10 feet apart, saying nothing, letting the quiet say what words couldn't. That moment didn't end with a decision. It didn't have a neat resolution, just a feeling, a shift. And I knew everything would feel different from that moment on. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, Ryan's voice echoed in my mind. You're the only person who ever made me feel like I wasn't performing all the time. It wasn't what he said exactly. It was how he said it. As if he'd been holding on to those words for a long time, unsure if they were ever safe to say. And I was ashamed to admit how deeply it stirred something inside me. The next morning, I lingered over my coffee longer than usual, watching the steam swirl above the mug. The kitchen was quiet, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound. Could still smell the faint scent of his cologne from when he hugged me goodbye yesterday, not inappropriate, just long enough to linger, enough to leave a trace. I told myself it was nothing, that I was reading too far into it, that he was just being vulnerable for a moment, and I'd been there to catch it. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. Melanie called around 10 to thank me for helping coordinate the dresser move. Ryan said you two had a good chat. He looked different when he came home quieter. I laughed it off. Maybe I just wore him out with stories about the old neighborhood. But my voice betrayed me. I could hear it in the pause that followed. Later that afternoon, I found myself folding laundry just to stay busy. The house was too still. I kept expecting a knock or a text, something, anything. It came just after 4. Ryan, can I stop by? There's something I think I left in the guest room. I stared at the message, simple, plain, but I knew better. Still, I replied, sure, I'll be here. When he arrived, he didn't go straight to the guest room. He stood in the entryway, holding a reusable grocery bag as a prop, like it might excuse whatever else he came to say. I hope this isn't weird. He sighed. I crossed my arms gently and leaned against the wall. Depends. He cracked a smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. I haven't been able to stop thinking about what I said yesterday, he admitted. I probably shouldn't have said it, but I meant it. I didn't interrupt. I let him speak. He set the bag down slowly and looked around the house, almost nostalgically. You know, this place reminds me of when I used to visit my grandmother. It has that warmth, that safety. You have that. The compliment landed softer than it should have, like it had been shaped with care. I stepped back a little, needing distance. Ryan, I don't want you to say anything you'll regret. He followed carefully. I won't regret being honest. He paused, searching for the right words. I don't know when I stopped feeling like myself, but lately with you, I feel seen again. Heard. I needed that dot. It would have been easy to shut him down, to scold him, to turn it into a warning, a lesson, a moment of correction. But something in his expression, a mix of sadness, hope, and guilt, kept me still. I think you're going through something, I said quietly, and I happened to be here when it surfaced. He nodded, looking away. That's probably true. There was a long silence. Then he took a step closer, not too close, but close enough for the air to change. I'm not asking for anything, he said, his voice almost a whisper now. I needed you to know that whatever happened yesterday mattered too. Me. He picked up the bag and turned to go. I stood in the hallway long after he left, one hand resting against the wall like it could hold me up. That night, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself for a long time, not for wrinkles or tired eyes, but for something I hadn't sought in years, proof that I was still a woman, not just a mother, not just someone's past. And in that moment, I realized something had shifted, not between Ryan and me necessarily, but inside myself. I wasn't invisible. Not anymore. The following week passed like the quiet between breaths. There were no more surprise visits, no more texts, just a long, Slow return to the routine of life, except nothing felt routine anymore. Every movement in my house felt charged with memory, the chair where he sat, the sunlit corner of the room where he said I reminded him of who he wanted to be. I didn't tell anyone what happened, not Melanie, of course, not my sister, not even my closest friend, Nora, who could always read me like a book. Some truths I've learned are too delicate to share, like glass you hold up to the light, but never dare to let anyone else touch. But the truth wasn't shameful. It wasn't a secret to bury in guilt. It was something else, a mirror. I had spent so many years seeing myself through other people's needs: mother, wife, grandmother, volunteer, good neighbor. I forgot what it meant to see myself, to ask what I felt, what I longed for, what made me feel alive. Ryan didn't give me those feelings. He awakened them. And that's why what happened next mattered more than anything that came before. It was a Saturday morning when Melanie called. We chatted about her weekend plans. She was heading to her in-laws for dinner, taking the kids to the park Sunday. Then her tone shifted. Ryan's been quiet lately, she said. Not distant, just thoughtful. Is everything okay between you two? After he helped with the dresser, I mean. There was a pause, and I had a choice. Yes, I said softly. Everything's fine. And in that moment, I realized it was because whatever passed between Ryan and me hadn't been betrayal. It had been recognition. It had been two people adrift in their own lives, finding something tender in the reflection of one another. But it didn't need to become something else. It didn't need to be acted upon or turned into a story we'd regret. Sometimes the most meaningful connections don't ask for a future. They ask for awareness. They ask you to wake up. A few days later, Ryan stopped by again, but this time it wasn't unexpected. Melanie was with him, and they had the kids in the back seat. He waved from the driveway, a kind, respectful smile on his face. Nothing more. But when our eyes met, there was understanding, a silent acknowledgement of a chapter quietly closed. Later that evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, the air cooling as the sun dipped low behind the trees, and I thought of something I hadn't let myself consider before. Maybe the most powerful kind of love isn't the romantic kind. Maybe it's the kind that helps you rediscover parts of yourself you thought were long gone, the kind that doesn't demand anything but leaves you changed. That night, I didn't feel lonely. I felt whole. For the first time in years, I truly saw myself. And she was still there. She always had been.